Hey guys, it's Nicola, welcome back. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you'll know that I like to read quite a bit of non-fiction, particularly essay collections, and I know that it can be a wee bit intimidating, so today I have picked out 5 short non-fiction gems, just really short, really snappy, really fun non-fiction books that I've really enjoyed in the past and that I would like to recommend to you. So if you're interested, then stick around. The first one that I have here is The Diving Bell and the Butterfly by Jean-Dominique Bauby. This was made into a film around, I think it was 2007, and I picked it up because I had seen the film. Jean-Dominique Bauby was an editor of French Elle magazine, and he was in an accident and suffered from locked-in syndrome, so he basically couldn't move his body at all, and he wrote this book by blinking. When he was in the hospital, the nurses came up with a way of reading the alphabet to him, and he would blink for yes, and basically they would run through the alphabet, he would blink on the right letters, and then they would kind of like guess the word after a certain amount of time, and he would confirm or deny. And that's how he wrote this whole book, which is over 100 pages. I mean, it's fairly big type, but it's really gorgeously written. Like, I guess he had a lot of time to sit around and think about exactly what it was that he wanted to write. So it's just kind of a memoir, and this became a bestseller because it is just an incredible read. I don't really know what to say about it apart from that. You know, it's a memoir, it's about his experiences, it's about what happened to him. This is also a book that I read at the point when I hadn't been reading a lot of books and I wanted to get back into it. I think this was the first one that I picked up, just because it had been kind of going around at the time, so perfect to get yourself into it. The next book I want to share is one of my favourite books of all time, never mind non-fiction books, and it is Travels with Charlie in Search of America by John Steinbeck. This edition is about 270 pages, but I think if you got like the full size one, it would probably be a wee bit shorter than that. Basically, after his long and storied career as a writer, after he'd written kind of his major works, it was the late 50s and he was 58 years old, and he just decided to go out with his dog Charlie on the road in a caravan or an RV, something like that, and just kind of like drove around the country. He has a lot of thoughts about that kind of period of like post-war America when things were starting to get better again. Is a very distinct time of prosperity in the US, and he has a lot of thoughts about that. He also has a lot of conversations with people who he runs into along the road. It's just a really like beautiful story. It's a lovely just kind of travelogue memoir. I really want to read it again actually. I've really thought about it a lot since I read it, and that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. The blurb on the back actually puts it a lot better than I ever could, so I'll just read that. It says, with Charlie, his French poodle, Steinbeck drives the interstates and country roads, dines with truckers, encounters bears at Yellowstone and old friends in San Francisco, and he reflects on the American character, on racial hostility, on a particular form of American loneliness he finds almost everywhere, and on the unexpected kind of strangers that is also a very real part of our national identity. So for kind of Americans and people who like to visit America alike, or just want like a flavour of what it was like at the time, definitely one of my favourites, definitely recommend it for you. The next book is kind of a departure and kind of not at all a departure. It is On the Shortness of Life by Seneca. This is a great ideas copy that I have of it. You can also buy it in a fuller version as Letters from a Stoic. There's like a Penguin Classics version, so I'll link to that in the description as well as this one. And it's basically just letters that he wrote to people in his life, talking about his philosophy of life and the things that he learned about how best to live, the value of your time, and basically just how to live a valuable life. And I found it really inspiring when I read it. I would definitely read it again, and this has a couple of other little excerpts in it as well. I just feel like they just had it figured out, you know. Like, you go back and read this and you're like, oh yeah, like we know all this stuff still, and we just get distracted by all the other shit that goes on in our lives. So if you want something that will like focus you and make you feel a bit motivated, maybe you're, you know, having a bit of an existential moment or crisis or something, and you want to kind of get back to basics, I picked this one up after I had read The Antidote by Oliver Burkeman, and he talked a lot about the Stoic way of thinking, and I find it a really interesting way of approaching life, and just kind of just like calmly taking on the challenges that come along with it. So yeah, I think this is a really good starter. When I read this, I just wanted to like underline every sentence in it, so definitely worth a shot. The next book I want to recommend is also a kind of a life in letters sort of thing, and it is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. Helene Hanff was a writer who's based in the United States, many years ago. I can't remember the exact year, I think it was the 50s or 60s, and she was an avid reader, and there were certain books that she wanted to get her hands on that she couldn't find at home, and so she wrote to the bookshop at 84 Charing-Cross Road and asked kind of what they had, and was making orders with them, and it just turned into a pen palship with the owners of the bookshop. So it's really lovely. There's lots of like little bits of conversation. It's just like a kind of a blossoming friendship through letters, and knowing that it actually happened makes it all the more charming. Their friendship through letters actually continued for about 20 years, so it's just really sweet. It's the kind of thing that it couldn't really happen anymore. Maybe it could with like other kind of antiquarian bookshops or that sort of thing, but it's just such a rare find. You might know that it was also turned into a film, so if you've seen the film, then that would be a good in as well, because then you have like something to compare with. Number 5 is my final suggestion, which is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. You probably know Murakami as a writer of fiction, and this is one of the few non-fiction books that he's written. He's actually written probably 3 or 4, so you might want to look into those as well. But this one is just about his life and times. He likes to run marathons and ultra marathons, and he writes in this short book about his approach, the kinds of goals that he sets himself, his daily routines. I like that kind of like Japanese style of discipline of just like getting a little bit better each day. There's so many writers who write about running, and they seem to be things that go hand in hand. I think at the time that I read this, I was having a small dalliance with running. So if you're a runner and or a writer, then definitely a good place to start as well. So those are 5 short non-fiction recommendations for you. If you are a reader of non-fiction already and you have any suggestions for me, I'd love to hear your recommendations, and if you go away and read these, then do let me know how you find them, and if you would like any other kind of more specific recommendations, then let me know what kind of stuff you usually like, and maybe I can find a non-fiction book for you to recommend. Let's have a chat in the comments. I make recommendation videos once in a while, but more importantly, every 2 weeks I give lots of recommendations in my podcast, which is called Bookish Blether, which goes up every 2 weeks. I will put all the links in the description if you'd like to subscribe to that. I like to give it a mention just once in a while to remind you. So I hope to see you there. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Happy reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.